Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Views from the Mitten podcast.
Cheeks up, I don't wanna fight, but push the fist up. Big crush, sign a piece of paper, now you switched up. Blew you up, it wasn't for my song, you wouldn't see the blood. Speed 'em up, I can't get betrayed, you can't be with us. Like that, hit me as a monster, guess it's my bad. Sidetrack, gotta let you go to get my mind back.
Hey, what if I told you making a podcast was a lot more easier than you think? And it's all thanks to Anchor. Anchor is a platform with creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They also distribute your podcast to multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you can get your podcast needs. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. You can find it at anchor.fm, anchor.fm, or you can even look it up on your mobile device app stores and find it that way to get started with your podcast today. Let's start with Damian Lillard. Now, Damian Lillard, obviously, as most people know, just got done putting on a show in Game 5 of the 6-game series between the Denver Nuggets and the Portland Trailblazers. But the Nuggets did end up winning in 6 games. Jokic went crazy at the end. Michael Porter Jr. had a really good first quarter also. He got like 22 points in the first. I don't know if it was the first quarter or the first half, but man was shooting. But yeah, Damian Lillard played his heart out like he does in every other series. And then he posted something on Instagram, I believe, after the game, like probably a couple hours after. And it was a Nipsey Hussle quote stating, "How long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meets preparation?" Now, a lot of people were kind of wondering what he meant by that. Does he want to get traded? Does the team get blown up? For me, I don't really think it's going to be him getting traded because, I mean, I'm pretty sure Damian Lillard loves Portland. Like, Portland's the team that actually gave him a chance, more or less, just because of, you could say height differential or just he didn't really probably show as much at Weber State than most scouts probably would have thought he would have. It's like a lot of variations that Portland just ignored to bring Damian Lillard to the team and be a focal point of the team. And blowing it up actually might not be a bad idea for them, mainly because when you look at the roster, on paper, it's a well-rounded roster to a certain extent. Like Carmelo Anthony is a veteran. Nurkic is a very good rebounder and has added on with scoring as his career has progressed. And CJ McCollum is a very solid 2-guard on most nights. But overall, I mean, I guess you say like their small forward position is like probably the one that drags a little bit because, I mean, then it's like you get Norman Powell, where Norman Powell actually still is a little bit on the above average side as far as his scoring ability. But then after that, you get the Rocco. I forgot Robert Covington. Yeah, Robert Covington's on that team as well. But them missing Zach Collins, you can kind of say that it kind of mattered in a sense for a deeper run, but I don't know. It's hard to gauge. But overall, if anything, the team's probably going to get blown up. Trades are probably going to be made. Probably about as early as the postseason, to be honest. Once it's all said and done, like there's probably package deals that could be made involving McCollum, maybe involving Nurkic, possibly even Rocco. But I mean, Lillard has really given Lillard has given his all to this city, and if anything, it'll be about what they can do to change the change the team around him rather than him trying to find another team. Because I think the Lakers or the Clippers, one of the two, it's probably both LA teams, honestly, because I wouldn't be surprised if either team really wanted them. But it was a couple teams. I think I saw them, the Celtics, the Heat. There's a couple teams that really think that they can make a run trade package-wise to possibly bring Damian Lillard on to their squad for the next season. So it should be pretty interesting how the Blazers and Damian Lillard maneuver the offseason as far as do they just blow it up and fully blow the team up by getting rid of one of their best stars, probably of all time when it comes to Blazers, outside of like Bill Walton. Like that, Damian Lillard literally is like the staple of Portland. So it should be interesting. I for for the sake of Portland, I hope that they don't trade Damian Lillard because that is a cold era of rebuilding that they would go through if they were to just completely get rid of everybody and just start over. But who knows? Anything really can happen. Like they could just shake it up to the complete max. And speaking of shaking things up, Danny Ainge, who was the president for the Boston Celtics, most known for finessing the Brooklyn Nets and a couple other teams out of various draft picks. But so he stepped down from his president role for the Celtics. I think it was as early as Wednesday. I'm not sure, or I can't really recall correctly. But as he stepped down, Brad Stevens pretty much removed himself from the head coaching role and is moving into a office role apparently, and is helping the team find his replacement, or helping the team find their replacement head coach. Now, it's a little jarring off first glance, whereas Danny Ainge has done so much for the team. But also, I mean, the only real gripe I have with him is the fact that the Miles Turner trade just never happened, and Miles Turner had been up for grabs for multiple seasons. And the center position is really what they needed the most down the stretch. That probably would have, I don't know if it would have saved them from the Nets series without Jaylen Brown, but it would have at least like softened the blow a little bit more and know that they have something to look forward to. But Miles Turner is probably still up for grabs anyway, so who knows? Hopefully that trade happens for them, possibly, because. But that's another topic for another day. But Brad Stevens leaving the head coaching position and going into an office role. From what I heard, I think he was kind of tired from the coaching aspect for a while now, but obviously he didn't want to leave the Celtics because I remember they had um, colleges that wanted to hire him potentially off if he gets fired from the Boston Celtics or just leaves the Celtics in general. And he said, you know what, he's Boston through and through. Like he doesn't want to. He loves the city, loves the atmosphere, and he wants to probably be on that staff for as long as he possibly can. So moving up to an office job, less stressful on him as far as dealing with like the traveling and all that stuff. He moves into an office role where he can kind of work on building the team and really just like molding the future from a different perspective. And I feel like that should be pretty good for him. Pretty good for him. I'm actually, excited to see what he does. Their head coach position, though, it's a multitude of places they could go with that. I mean, I think Jason Kidd is like probably a big target. Um, I forgot the female that they had on staff for the Celtics, but she could potentially step up. I've seen Becky Hammond, who was like an assistant for Popovich and the Spurs. So there's a lot of directions they can go with that. I think I even seen Alvin Gentry. Like I was watching a video and it was like Alvin Gentry could have been like one of five options that could possibly fit them. But once again, also it should be interesting to see what they do with their head coaching job. The team as a whole is pretty talented. They just have so many assets that aren't being used, or just like they have an overabundance of guards that's off the rip. So if anything, like I said earlier, if they can try to get like a guy like Miles Turner, or even if they like happen to get like lucky with one of the picks that they had in the lottery that they have in the lottery from other teams, you could probably get a big for the price of a rookie deal in the offseason. So should be interesting to see what they do as they kind of start their whole road back to like, finals and stuff like that. Because, Jason Tatum, he played very, very good in some games, had 50 in a game where I think it was somewhat lose or go home, but eventually the next game was almost the same ante. Marcus Smart played good down the stretch as well. It's probably about where the line stops with them, honestly, because Kemba went down and Robert Williams went down as well. So it should be interesting to see what they do with Danny Ainge out of office and Brad Stevens moving up to potentially find like the head coach for them for the next 7 years or so. But now we get into the NBA playoffs again, because we're now partially finalized on the second round of the NBA playoffs, the semis, and with one game left, which is, I believe, tonight with the Mavericks and Clippers to decide their series, whether or not it goes to 7 or whether the Mavericks go on to play the Jazz in the second round. We have a couple of just updates if no one knows who advanced and who, like, how many games it went. The Sixers beat the Wizards in 5 games. The Hawks beat the Knicks in 5 games. The Nets beat the Celtics in 5 games, and the Suns beat the Lakers in 5 games. And oh no, not 5, 6 games. Sorry. And the Nuggets, like I said earlier, beat the Blazers in 6 games. Now, kind of just run down just their series as a whole before I get into anything else. The Sixers and the Wizards, I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody thought less of the Sixers, even though Embiid went down. Ben Simmons pretty much shut all that up. Had a pretty good night, pretty solid night. And the Wizards, they just were outmanned, or just, the team was very, very young. Outside of Westbrook and Beal, leadership really isn't like, maybe Robin Lopez 50-50, but leadership and experience really is like very, very minimal on that team. But future wise, I mean, Rui Hachimura is on the upswing. Davis Bertans went down with a calf strain, I believe. So hopefully he has a speedy recovery going into the next season as well. Denny Avdia didn't play down the stretch for them. And, there's a lot of things that could potentially change for the Wizards next season. Daniel Gafford also had a very good showing out in, I believe it was game 4? Might have been game 4. Who knows? Might have been game 4. But yeah, overall, the Sixers, I mean, if they can get Embiid back, I feel like they can make a strong run overall. Plus, they play the Hawks next, which should be a very competitive series. But it might be a little bit less competitive as far as, like, from a Hawks perspective, because I think I seen Shaq basically said, without Embiid, the Hawks win in 5. And it's really not that far off, because, I mean, down the stretch, the Sixers kind of had to deal with the the anger of Ben Simmons, getting fouled down to, I think it was in the game that the Wizards won. They just constantly fouled him to send him to the line, because everybody knows Ben Simmons in that series specifically was shooting horrible from the free throw line. So throw him on the line, make him do half and half, and see what he does. Take what you can get. But with the next game afterwards, him putting up, I think he put up a triple-double in that game. I'm not positive, but I believe he did put up a pretty good stat line in that game. Yeah, so in that game, in game 5, Ben Simmons put up 19, 11, and 10. So he came back pretty strong. But also, at the same time, you have to look at Tobias Harris, who put up 28, and Seth Curry, who put up 30. And then you look at the bench, Maxey with 13, and Maxey with 13, Howard with 12, Korkmaz with 10. This is the type of production that they're going to need, like, consistently to beat the Hawks in the next series, because the Hawks have a lot of options when it comes to scoring the ball. Like, you got Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Bogdanovich, Gallinari, DeAndre Hunter. Why am I drawing a blank? I don't know if I said John Collins already. I probably did. But yeah, there's a lot of options that they have offensively that they can go to, predominantly of the shooting variety, that can really, like, stretch the floor and, put some shots up. So the Sixers are going to need a lot of that going into this series with the Hawks. And I think right after that, we're going to be talking about the Hawks beating the Knicks in 5. Now, this was, like I said in the last one of the series that I enjoyed the most, mainly because of, like, just the trash talk that the Hawks were dishing out almost on a nightly basis after game 1. Trae Young went to the Garden, showed out in the Garden. John Collins, standing up for his team. Even Clint Capella at one point saying that their whole goal, or their whole point of, like, when in the next game, was to send the Knicks on vacation. And like there was just so many, like, I guess you can say, like, confidence fueling moments in that series for the Hawks. And the Knicks just really didn't have an answer for it. I mean, Julius Randle played some of his worst basketball probably yet as an NBA player. RJ Barrett was hit or miss in most of the series. Derrick Rose showed up a couple of times, but down the stretch, I mean, it's like he's guarding Trae Young on and off. So I mean, Trae Young's getting buckets or whatever. It's really it was really just not leaning right for the Knicks at all. And then their big support really wasn't. Well, they did. I don't know. It was like all over the place because Taj Gibson, Nerlens Noel, they played serviceable, but Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella really, showed up down the stretch for the Hawks. And Onyeka Okongwu was still a rookie, by the way. Forgetting that whole aspect, by the way, like he is still a rookie and had a couple of plays where he showed up down the stretch to help the Hawks win that series. But overall, I'm actually happy that the Hawks, won the series because they just looked they wanted it more. Like that's the main thing I always looked at every single time I watched those games. The Hawks really wanted it more, and it showed not only in gameplay but also just like the trash talk aspect. Like every time they kind of like tried to puff their chest out a little bit, some Knicks players would react a little bit, but most of the time they were just kind of laughing it off or just saying that they didn't care. They're winning the next game or whatever. And it just didn't really seem like they were really confident in the idea of them winning the rest of the series, at least from my eyes. I know obviously like they wanted to win, but it just didn't seem like it to me. So hopefully the Knicks can, restructure, rebuild. I don't know who they plan on probably bringing in the offseason, draft wise, or even free agency. They also could be in position to get Damian Lillard as well through trade. So it'd be interesting to see what they could possibly do to maneuver and probably try to get past the first round next year. But the Hawks and Sixers should definitely be a very competitive series. Ben Simmons and Trae Young in a series together just seems really, really interesting. Hopefully, we get a little bit of that we get a little bit of that practice Ben Simmons that like was practice like when he was in the gym practicing shooting, like all the smack talk he would do in the gyms, like shooting from like half court or whatever. I hope we see a little bit of that, like a little bit of energy, a little bit of banter, just to keep that up because that's one of the better parts of playoff basketball. Like everybody just wants to win. Like I'm not saying throw hands, but talk a little smack like that adds up to it gets the crowd involved, gets your teammates fired up. It adds a lot to the game. It adds a real lot to the game. Um, Nets beating the Celtics in five. Not really going to spend too much time talking about this, really, because I mean, everybody kind of knew the landscape of the series without a Jaylen Brown for the Celtics, and then without a Kemba or like a Robert Williams. It was pretty much Tatum and Smart down the stretch, and that's really all it is. Like then you got Durant, Harden, and Kyrie leading the big three, combining for like over 80 up to 100 points a game. Joe Harris coming in, I think, the game before game five. Yeah, the game before game five, just sparking them up for three. Like, there's just Landry Shamet coming in off the bench as well. Like, there's just a lot that played into the Nets winning the series, more or less because, they just have more talent. They just have more guys, more bodies on hand. And that's just how that went. I believe the next series they play the Bucks, which I'm very interested in seeing how that goes because Giannis is looking very locked right now. Giannis is looking locked. Chris Middleton also, Drew Holiday, like that team is looking to steamroll. And if the Nets don't come with that same energy, it could be another situation like how we're gonna get into later with like even though the Suns weren't the underdogs in that series, a lot of people probably didn't think they were gonna beat the Lakers as quick as they actually did. I mean, 6 games doesn't seem that quick, but 6 games with Bron, I mean, it's a little crazy. But right as we get into that, Suns beating the Lakers in 6 games, and I watched this game last night, and the Suns came out on fire. Like Jay Crowder threes, Devin Booker threes, Cam Johnson in the corner three. I think Michael Bridges even hit one. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Chris Paul showed up. DeAndre Ayton, Cameron Payne getting to the line. Like just the Suns showed up they showed up last night. And it was just a barrage. They hit him in the mouth early and they wouldn't stop hitting him. And that's really what they had to do. That's really what you have to do against like a Bron that like the way he played, like he was charging. He was in that paint wanting buckets. Like from the time that I looked up, it was times where he really like wanted to try to press the issue and try to make something happen. And when you have a team where, is a guy like Bron just like, trying to make something happen, you got to show up on defense. You got to make sure like you're not fouling him constantly. You got to make sure like, if he does get fouled, take a little bit of energy off of him. And that's really what they did. Anthony Davis played for like a few minutes in the game, I believe. And he went straight to the locker room. Caldwell Pope ended up playing, but it really didn't matter. Um, Kuzma. Kuzma very much gets like a lot of hate from the Lakers faithful. Not really, not to say that like it's unnecessary hate, but Kuzma just really hasn't shown up, and fans don't like it at all. Fans do not like that at all. And one thing I kind of just want to talk about real quick, because this is really like the only series that I'm seeing this with. Not really as much as when the playing tournament was going on and Ja beat Curry. It really wasn't that much of this going on, but I've seen so many people saying that um people just love watching LeBron fail. And I really, from my perspective, at least I'd say, I don't think it's about seeing LeBron fail. But for me, it's about just seeing, new teams, new matchups, history being made, not only from, you could say one player, but just from an overall franchise. Like the Suns they haven't been to a finals since, I believe, 93 with Barkley. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but it's been a minute. And then, like, as far as like being like full on like playoff contenders, they haven't been in that position since Nash and Stoudemire. So it's hard to really just look at that series and not think to yourself, I would really like to see the Suns potentially win the series, for not only just for the Booker and Chris Paul duo to get another round, because man, Booker dropped 40 plus last night, shooting the lights off the Staples Center. But just for like a new change of pace, with like when you look at the Western Conference, the Jazz are in the second round. You have the Nuggets in the second round. You have like it's a lot of like, potentially the Mavericks in the second round. It's like a lot of, fresh teams, fresh teams as far as, certain like just really young, like hungry players on these courts playing extended minutes in crunch time. So they played very, very well. Jay Crowder showed up. Like everybody on that Suns team showed up last night. And with Bron, I mean, Bron's only getting older. I think everybody knows that. Anthony Davis, I don't know. He's kind of in that Porzingis boat as far as like no one really knows what they're doing with their bodies in the off seasons where they're always hurt this much. And that's a little more concerning rather than like I'd say LeBron not winning a first round series, because Anthony Davis has a pivotal role in that offense. And if he's always constantly going down with like thumb injuries and calf strains and thigh cramps, and like really how much further are you going to get within the time frame that LeBron still has set for himself? Like you have a lot to work with just to, you know, try to get him another ring if if the team can allow it to happen. So it's going to be really tough looking at like next season for them, depending on if they have to make a big splash, like they're going to have to bring in another like superstar potentially for them to even make it out of the first round again next year, because the Suns are only going to get better with the more experience they accumulate. The Jazz already are number one right now, who are battling with the Suns for the number one seed. They're only going to get better with experience. You got Joker, Michael Porter Jr., and Jamal Murray coming back in full swing next season as well, once Jamal Murray's healthy. There's a lot. And then you don't even know where Damian Lillard's going. Like, he might go to the Lakers, but you don't know where Lillard's going either, if he does get traded or if any of his teammates get moved. Like, it's a lot of things that can shake up. So hopefully the Lakers can really like regroup in this offseason, get some stuff done so that they probably don't get knocked out first round again. But I mean, congratulations to the Suns. Like, they showed up and really put in the hard work to, really move themselves into the second round of the playoffs. And last thing we're going to be talking about is the Nuggets and the Blazers in 6. I ain't gonna lie, this was like a nerve-wracking series for me because I really wanted the Nuggets to win this series. Ended up winning the series. But Damian Lillard is unbelievably he's a different breed when it comes to shooting. Or he's up there with like the Curry with Curry and stuff as far as like just making unbelievable shots. Like the 2 shots he hit in game 5, I don't know how he managed to make that happen. Like I don't know how he managed to make that happen. Like it was just it was honestly something that I did not expect to ever see just in a random playoff game. Like Lillard he put his heart and soul out there every single time he's in these playoff series. But Jokic only had one game that series. Well, the last series that they played where he had under 30 plus, which I believe was it might have been game 5, I think. Or game 4 or game 5. He had like 19 points. But outside of that, he's been 30 and above with points. Michael Porter Jr. showed up over these last 2 games, which really gave them that little energy boost in the beginning of the game. Monte Morris starting to get a little more comfortable out there. Sometimes he still makes a couple mistakes, but I mean, he's really not. I don't think he's really a predominant facilitating type of point. But that's what you got Facundo Campazzo for. But just overall, just the Nuggets had to really dig deep to win this series, and it's not going to get easier for them as they play the Suns. Right after that, I believe. I think they play the Suns, but it doesn't get easier for them with the next series that they have. So it's interesting how this is shaking up. A lot of new teams, new faces in these second rounds. Hopefully, we see Luka advance tonight, or we might see a game 7. Kawhi might just come out in Raptors mode and just deliver down the stretch as well for the Clippers. But next time we come back with an episode, it'll probably be Tuesday, honestly, depending on if they do like a game 7 or whatever. And that'll be the start of the second round, and then kind of my predictions on what will happen for the rest of the playoffs. But if you haven't already, follow or subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're watching it on, whether it be Anchor, Spotify, Overcast, whichever platform you are listening to this on. Also, I activated listener support, so you guys can support the podcast to help us advance, the technology or just whatever things we can add to the podcast, just to make it a lot more better, make it a lot more better, a lot more entertaining for you guys, and a lot more enjoyable. Yeah, hope you guys enjoy your weekends. Hope you enjoy the game tonight, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.